Bye.
Okay, thanks to our sponsors. Today's daf, Mr. Harold Lorderman, Lina Nishmas, Rabbi Lorderman's grandfather of Dov Ber ben Ephraim Yaakov HaKoyin, whose yahrzeit is today, and the breakfast sponsor Shmuley and Miriam Fuchs, Lina Nishmas, Shmuley's sister, Yosef Yehudit Bat Yitzchak Yaakov. We're on Yud Amud Beis. Yud Amud Beis and Masech Shevuos. So the Mishnah had said, there's several opinions in the Mishnah of, complicated, but several opinions in the Mishnah, for those that are still with us, about which of these Seirim and what they're mechaper for. So we're coming towards the end of analyzing those Tanoim about what they hold, which Seirim are mechaper for what. So we're going to go to Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda's opinion, last one in the Mishnah. So Mara says, just to quickly review it over, very, very quickly, the Mishnah Daf Beis Amud Beis had said that Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda's opinion was, very quickly, Shem ben Yehuda's opinion was that Sir Rashi Chadashim, the ones we bring every month, are machaper on a tahor that ate kachim, which became tameh, much lighter of air than the rest. Regalim are machaper on that, and on someone who interacted betuma with the mikdash or kachim, and he had no clue. He had no idea, not in the beginning and not at the end. Yom Kippur does all that, and is also machaper on someone that had no yudiyah at the beginning, but he found out later on at the end. Those are the three. And then the Se'er B'fnim, there's a different discussion. But that's from Shimon Yehuda's opinion. So kind of it's like a ladder. I would say it's more like a staircase. As the karbanos go on, they atone for everything that the previous one did, and then some. So where does he get that from? So Mar says, Ma'ishna Yerashei Chadashim Deloy Mechapri Regalim. How come? What's the difference that Rosh Chodesh Karban, the Seir of Rosh Chodesh is not mechaper for that which the Regalim are mechaper? Why is that? The Amar Kral Pasuk says by Rosh Chodesh Avin, it says Avin Echad Hu Noisei, one Avera can carry. We learn out Ve'enu Noisei Shnei Avinas, and it cannot carry two Averas. So the Seir of Rosh Chodesh is limited that it could only carry two. It could only carry one Avera and not two. So the question is, if that's the case, so then the Regalim Nami Lo Nechaper Ad Rosh Chodesh. Why don't we limit it in the reverse also? How come the carbon of the Regalim can't be mechaper for that which Rosh Chodesh is mechaper? Because also the Makar Pasuk also says, Oisa Oisahu Naisei Avin. It can carry Avin. Vein Acher Naisei Avin. Nobody else can carry its Avin. In other words, it says Rosh Chodesh Avin and it says Oisa. So just like we limit Rosh Chodesh to only be able to take care of one problem, how come the word Oisa only says that the only thing that can take care of its problem is Rosh Chodesh itself? How come we allow others, or the carbon of the Regalim, to take care of the same problem that Rosh Chodesh takes care of? Why don't we box it in, so to speak, on both sides? So more answers. And again, this is one of the drushas of the previous Tanaim that held that each one was limited to its own lane, so to speak. So how come, if Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda agrees with one of those drushas, why doesn't he agree with the other one? So it says he doesn't agree with that drusha of Isa. However, the first one of Avin, he does agree. That's why Rosh Chodesh can only take care of one problem, but others can take care of, so to speak, its problem. Fine. So it says Ma'ishna the Regalim. So now let's go to the next level. How come Regalim loy mechapri ad Yom Kippurim? What's the difference that we know Regalim can't take care of Yom Kippur's problem? The carbon of Yom Kippur is greater; it takes care of a third problem. Anyway, with Regalim, the carbon of the Regalim cannot. Damar Kal Pasuk says Achas B'Shana. It says by Yom Kippur Achas B'Shana. Kapara Zu Lo Tehela Achas B'Shana. This kapara can only be taken care of once in a year. So this carbon can only take care of that. So if that's the case, Yachid Yom Kippurim Nami, if it's limited, then Yom Kippur also, the problem of Yom Kippur, Nami Lo Nechaper Ad Regalim. Sorry, Yom Kippur also shouldn't be able to take care of the problem of Regalim. Just like Regalim is limited, that it can only take care of one problem. So then Yom Kippur, which is the notch up, why are we allowing Yom Kippur to be more, effective? How come Yom Kippur can take care of the problem of the Regalim, of the carbon of the Regalim? Achas ksiv, kapara achas mechaper v'nechaper shtei kaparas. Why doesn't he make that drasha that we saw previously that the Tanaim make? That why don't we say Yom Kippur also is just as limited as Regalim are? It can only take care of one problem, not two. So again, achas le mashmon. He doesn't darshan. Learn that drasha of achas. Why not?
Well, the achas they said was achas lifnim and bechutz, right? That was the whole thing. They had
they had that pasuk before.
Yeah. The other Tanaim learned that
pasuk. That's what the pasuk was referring to. It was distinguishing between the korban inside and outside of the for on Yom Kippur. We already used it for that.
We did use it, but the other Tanaim learn Achas to tell me that Yom Kippur can only also solve one problem. And yet Rabbi Shimon Yehuda says, it doesn't bother me. I allow Yom Kippur to be more effective.
Inclusive.
Yeah. Now, what's the difference? Why? Mar says, like you said, because where's the location of that word achas? It's written by bifnim. So since it's written by bifnim, and we're not talking about the carbon bifnim, we're talking about the carbon b'chutz. So therefore, that pasuk doesn't really, the fact that it says achas doesn't bother me very much. Doesn't limit the carbon b'chutz of Yom Kippur, because the word achas is written by the carbon of bifnim. So Mar says, okay, but if the word achas is written by the carbon of bifnim and it's not relevant, so the regalim nami nechaperu ad Yom Kippurim. If that word achas is out, it's irrelevant to our discussion. So then, why don't we allow the other side of the coin? Why don't we allow regalim also to be mechaper on that which Yom Kippur is mechaper? Right? Because again, it's only written by the ser b'fnim. If that word achas doesn't limit me going right, then why does it limit me going left? So Mar says, lo'ilam achas mashma. Like really, he does hold of the drasha achas. But if you look carefully, look at where the word achas is written. Shani hachav, here it's different. Amar krav v'chiper aron al karnais of achas bishana. Where is that second achas? It's written not by the kapara section of the. It's not by the kapara phrase of the pasuk. Karnais of the mizbeach apnimi who the kapara achas mechaper and mechaper shtei kaparas. The achas is written. The achas is written by kapara is relevant. However, the other drasha, which the word achas is put in by the karnais of the mizbeach, it's the phrase. The word achas is written in the phrase of the karnais of the mizbeach. So that is not a relevant piece to connect over to from Serah HaPnimi, where the word achas is written, where the drashas are written, over to Serah Chitzim. Rashi explains a little bit more. He says that there is a hekish from Pnimi to Chitzim, like Brian said, but that's only if the word achas is written by kapara, so to limit the effect, how effective kapara can be. But Rashi says, but the achas at the beginning of the pasuk, right? That we're not going to slide over to Chitzon. Why not? Because it's not written by the Seir. The word achas is written by the phrase discussing the mizbeach. So that doesn't slide over from Pnimi, which is the original location of the word achas, over to Chitzon, because it's not discussing the kapara element. The hekish from Pnimi to Chitzon is busy with the kapara, just like this to this, like that to that. So therefore, only one of the two achases are we going to darshan and bring over from Pnimi to Chitzon, only the one that is placed by kapara. Therefore, Yom Kippur is not limited by what it can be mechaper. However, the se'er of regalim is limited to be able to be mechaper for what Yom Kippur is mechaper.
Right.
A little bit dancing around with the drasha, but that's what it is. Fine. All right.
Wait, why? Okay, the first part I understand. Why the regalim is limited? Where do we get that the regalim is limited? That it doesn't cover
achas from the drasha of achas. Kapara zu loy tehel achas b'shana.
Okay.
Yeah. The regalim's kapara can only be effective for that one halacha.
Right, I mean, but at the same time we say it
includes Rosh Chodesh.
Rosh Chodesh. That's what I don't understand. Why would the achas?
No, but that avera. Mechaper for that avera, the regalim can only do one. I hear what you're bothered by. Hold on a second.
Yeah, you're saying achas is
No, I'm sorry, because the achas is by Yom Kippur.
Right, that's what
the achas is by Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur says this is the only time of year we're giving kapara for this level of avera. Regalim does its own stuff. But on Yom Kippur, this is the only time that it can be mechaper. So ask the Gemara, okay, so then why doesn't achas limit Yom Kippur not only that nobody else can do this, but why do we limit it? This is the only thing it could do.
Right.
Where it says, because if you look at the word achas look at them, they're different. First of all, achas only written by Pnimi. So only if you're able to drag it over to Chitzon is it going to actually say anything.
Right.
So since the word achas, one of them is written by the actual kapara, so that allows us to drag it over. The other word achas, he doesn't like that drasha because it's written by discussing the mizbeach, and it doesn't get into the kapara discussion at all. So there's only one drasha. It's a one-sided relationship.
Right, but it's once a year that it can only be covered.
Yeah, the only drasha is that this kapara of Yom Kippur can only be done once a year on Yom Kippur. It can't be done by regalim and then Rosh Chodesh, etc. But there is no drasha to limit to what Yom Kippur can do. Yom Kippur can affect
everything.
This and regalim and yeah, exactly.
Right. because it's on a higher level. Okay, and Regalim, because there was no limitation, it could cover everything that Rosh Chodesh does. Rosh Chodesh, because it specifies. Okay, fine.
Yeah. So Hadran Olach, that sugya of the Tanoim and their drushes. Now we go on to a brand new thing. Amar Ula Amr Bechanan, brand new halacha, and we're bringing this, I believe, because we're going to ask later a kasha on this sugya from our Mishnah. But what this sugya is going to be, the sugya of pidyon. I mean, you have something which is kachim. Are you able just to simply be paid it and flip over the value of the item onto something else that kachim can utilize that second thing? So we're going to see that once something is the phrase we're going to see is kedusha shebahen lehechan halcha, where it's kedusha can't just be extracted. It's not so simple just to remove kedusha from an item. We'll see later on that it's because Bezdin set it up at the beginning. We'll give away the end over here. The Bezdin sets it up at the beginning when they make something kaddish that they allow for a back door, so to speak, to get out of to remove that value onto something else. We'll see.
Just one question before we go. That's only according to Rav Shimon what we just said
Correct.
Okay.
Other time argue.
Right.
They hold that everything's boxed into its own lane.
Right.
Correct. A carbon tamid. So we know there's a big inventory of the lishcha that they have many tamidim. Correct. We bring 2 a day. So they have a whole hektish owned herd of sheep is the plural. And we know Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the cutoff. That's the fiscal year for Beis Hamikdash. So you cannot use, once you hit Rosh Chodesh Nisan, you got to use a fresh collection, fresh money source to purchase new carbon tamids 2 a day for as you go forward. So the shaila is tamidim shel hotzich letzibur. If you have tamidim that the tzibur doesn't need, they're extra. You got a bunch of sheep lying around. Rashi says you'll never have more than 4 because they always keep a stock of 6. So your last day of the year, I think is what it means, you're going to use 2. Anyway, the point is you have extra sheep lying around. So the question, what do you do with them? So Rashi says, you can pay them even though they're perfectly fine. Generally speaking, a carbon, you can only be paid it and transfer the kedusha when it has a mum. Right. Regular, perfectly nice carbon, we don't take it from the status of kachim mizbeach, that it's ready to go on the mizbeach, and then all of a sudden, take that money and transfer it over to something else. You can't do that unless it has a mum. However, if it's something that was a hektish inventory that was purchased by the money of hektish, for some reason, Rabbi Yochanan says you're allowed to just simply be paid it even though it has no mum. And this is going to be the chiddush. Yosef Rabbi Rabbi was sitting and he said that he was discussing this. So you Amalei Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said to him, "Man sayis lechol Rabbi Yochanan Rabcha." Sayis means to listen. No? Man sayis lechol Rabbi Yochanan Rabcha. Is there one who listened to you and Rabbi Yochanan your Rebbe? What are you talking about? Kedusha shebehel lehechan halcha. Their kedusha, where did it go? How could it be that you just allow the kedusha to disappear? So he answered back, Rabbi, what do you mean? Amalei atlai tizbra. You don't hold double negative. The lay amrina and kedusha sheben leichan. Oh, you don't hold that there's a problem. Of course, you can just make it disappear. How do you know? What's not? We learned in a Mishnah. Mishnah increases meiser haktiris. Similar idea. The ketira stash, which they had plenty of at the end of the year. Mahayu oisin bahem. What would they do? So it's a little complicated. Really, they could have done this simply, but we'll see. They want to basically the idea is to get the money out of the ketiris, the value, and then repurchase the same ketiris again. You can cheat. You could basically not get the money, pay off the ketiris, and then purchase it again with the new collection, with the new fiscal year's money, same exact physical ketiris.
If you cheat, wouldn't that be in the bear?
No, so when I say cheating, I mean you're following the rules. You're just pulling a quick one, a 1-2. Meaning you're basically getting last. When I say cheating, in the budget sense, you're cheating. You're going to have the same item be used for ketiris, just instead of having it come from last year's finances, you're going to make it come from this year's finances. This is way too relevant. Principals trying to use last year's budget to buy school supplies, and then, anyways, so they will pocket the money. So, anyways, so what do you do? What do you do? You separate this extra ketiris as the pay. You're actually going to use this ketiris as the payment for the employees of the Beis Hamikdash. And then you're going to transfer it over to money, right? And you transfer it over to the money of the workers. And then you give it the ketiris to the umnim bischaron. So now the umnim is sitting with this ketiris as their schar. And then you're going to buy back off them from the new money. So you take the ketiris, right? You take the Keteris and you set it aside that this is going to be the payment of the workers of in the base of Mikdash, and then you transfer it over to money. So now that money is fresh money. You give the Keteris, physical Keteris, as payment to the worker. The worker goes, "Thank you very much," and you go, "Hey, can I buy that off you?" And then you buy it back. So you basically, essentially, what you've done is you took the old Keteris of last year and you've repurchased it by the base of Mikdash. Repurchased it with new money. Now Rashi has a kasha. Why don't you just buy it once? Why don't you just directly have? So how's that work? Rashi says the reason why you can do it faster and straighter, but it's a zilzal to the base of Mikdash. Meaning we do an extra few moves in order that it shouldn't be a zilzal to the base of Mikdash. What would be the quicker way? Again, what are they doing? They're taking the Keteris. They are. You set the Keteris aside.
Right.
And you
using it to pay the workers.
And then you mechal it on the money, and you give the Keteris to the umnim, and then you buy it back. Yeah, with that money. I guess what you could do faster is what you have the Keteris. Rashi says.
So wait, you're podei. You're giving the animals to pay for the workers, and then you're buying
Keteris.
The Keteris. Sorry, you're giving the Keteris to pay for the workers, then you're buying the Keteris back from the workers with the money you were podei with. Is that right?
Rashi says, you take money. The Gizbar takes money on behalf of these workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're chulun, regular chulun money. Then you take the Keteris and you put the kedusha of the Keteris on this money. And you give the Keteris to the umnim, and then you buy it with truma chadasha. She says, this is more tznius, as opposed to, why don't you forget this whole employee business? Why don't you just take this Keteris, sell it to someone, and then just buy it back?
Right.
What do you have to have this whole concoction of employees and whatever? So actually, it's less.
It's less obvious.
It's less obvious, exactly.
It's more of a money law.
Exactly. The CRA is not going to chop. Right. Correct. Exactly. You got to put another hook in there so they don't realize. So once you go with the whole employee route, so then it's more tznius. Yeah, it's more tznius. Exactly.
Spark will never be able to follow that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we do, right? That's what we do.
And my question, why didn't you?
Okay, so fine. So now the question is, why are you allowed to do that? Or actually, I'd rather we say, we see from here, now let's read it through. Meaning we set aside money for them, and we give it to them bischaron. And then we're going to buy back from them with the truma chadasha. How are you allowed to do this? Why don't you say that? Oh, where'd the kedusha go? So we're trying to bring a raya that you could do. Again, it's an item purchased by Beis Hamikdash, and we see it's very mobile. You can move it in, move it out. Now, obviously, again, someone who's makdish a carbon is very different than this. An individual that's makdish a carbon, so there we know it doesn't have a mum, you can't be paid yet. Here we're discussing a unique category of things purchased by the Beis Hamikdash on a global level. That seems to be that you can bounce out of the kedusha much easier. So we see from Keteris you're allowed to do that. So it says no, Keteris is not a raya. I'm like Keteris Kamar. You're speaking about Keteris, shiny Keteris. Keteris is different. The kedusha's damu. Keteris is kedusha's damu. It's different. Meaning, animals that are purchased by Beis Hamikdash, so those are korbanos. They go on the mizbeach. Whereas Keteris until it's actually brought as Keteris is spices. What have you done to it? You took you crushed it with what's it called again? With machteshes. So there's no kedusha to it. I mean, there's kedusha, but it's financially based on Hamikdash, but there's no kedusha of guf. So yeah, you can't bring a raya from Keteris, which is Rashi, what the Gemara says is just kedusha's damim. It's just financially owned by the Beis Hamikdash versus the we said before the tamidim. Those are korbanos that go up on the mizbeach. Those we're still saying that those are harder to get rid of the kedusha. So it's no raya.
But you're podated. When you're podated, I thought that was the whole point.
100%. But so without a mum, that was the whole wonderment. How do you just take an animal that's supposed to go up to the mizbeach and poof, be paid it with no mum? So we try to bring a raya from Keteris. Keteris is not a raya. Keteris is just spices. It's just there's no Kedushas Aguf to it. Right? So Gemara says, based on that statement that Keteris is low level, it's just Kedushas Damim, El Miata, but according to this, Loi Tifsol B'Tzful Yoim. If Keteris was a lower level Kedusha, that it was only Kedushas Damim, then it should not be able to become possible but if touched by a Tzful Yoim. Tzful Yoim is someone who's tummy. All he's done everything he needs to do. He's just waiting for the day to be over. He was toivel. He's waiting for Shkia to become tar. So he's a low level tummy. And based on what we just said, that Keteris is just Kedushas Damim, then Tzful Yoim shouldn't be a problem. But guess what? But we learned Nasna Machteshes. Once it was put in the Machteshes, the Keteris was grinded up, and if Tzful Yoim, it does become possible by a Tzful Yoim. So, which way does it go? You're claiming Keteris is low level Kedusha, well then it shouldn't become tummy by a Tzful Yoim. Which one is it? Now, maybe you'll tell me, maybe you'll say, Kol Kedushas Damim Mifsal B'Tzful Yoim. Maybe that's not a big deal. Maybe all Kedushas Damim, even though it's low level Kedusha, becomes is a problem of Tzful Yoim. I'll show you it's not true. We're going to Mishnah. A whole list of things. Hamanachis, the carbon mincha is moilim behem. There's mila right away. Misha hook the as soon as you make a kaddish, it becomes there's mila. If you use it, you're over isra mila. You're stealing from kaddish. Kaddish b'kli, but once it went into a kli sharis, so now it's more kaddish. So then hochshru, it's prepared lifsal b'tzvul yoyim because kibburim ubelina. Now it has a potential problem of being touched by its yoyim, or someone who's even less tummy. He already saw that at the end of the day, and he's just missing a carbon. Mechosar kibburim, he's even less tummy. Ubelina and the psul of lina, if something is left over too long. Those things are only relevant if something's already super kaddish. So again, these things, if all that happened to them was that someone was makdish them, so then the only relevant yet is meila. Once it was put in a klisharis, so now it becomes kedushas aguf. So now it gets all these very strict halachas of tfoyoyim, mechosar kippurim, and lina. So we've been diak from there. It's only because kaddish b'kli in. Yeah, if it was put into a kli, yes, then you have a problem. However, loy kitchu b'kli loy. But if it wasn't put into a kli, loy wouldn't be a problem. So what do you see from here? You see from here that these type of things only once they're kutcha b'kli, so they attain kedushas haguf. That's when you have all these problems with tfoyoyim and such. But before that, this carbon mincha, as an example, doesn't have these problems. So simply being kedushas damim, simply being financially owned by Tzmeis Mikdash, doesn't have these problems of tfoyoyim. So again, back it up. If we're going to say that keteris is low level kedusha, it's only kedushas damim, then why in the world is keteris, like we see in that first price I brought it online too? Why do we see that it's a problem with tfoyoyim? Must be rather that keteris, even as soon as it's crushed up, is already kedushas aguf. And again, back it up. We claimed that keteris is low level kedusha, is only kedushas damim, in order that it shouldn't be a proof to our discussion of can you zap out kedusha from something or not. So which way is it going to go? Which way is it going to go? So Mar says, okay, fine, I surrender. Must be that, like you've proven, keteris is kedushas haguf, right? Which again is going to be a problem for our sugya, but still the Gemara is not satisfied yet. Fine, elamai. Rather, what are you going to say that kedushas hagufi, that keteris immediately has kedushas haguf? El miata, but rather now tifsa belina. According to you, that keteris is immediately kedushas haguf. As soon as it gets crushed up, it should become possible lina. Lina is if it's left over, then it becomes possible. But we see not like that. Alma Tanam Bad, however, we learned in Mishnah. A few things over here. Hakaimitz, right? That's the part that you take out of the carbon mincha. Belavoina, it's one of the spices. Akatayres, that's the one we want. Uminchas kaimin, and the mincha of kahanim, minchas kainim meshuach, and the mincha of the kain when he becomes kain gadol, minchas nesachim. All these type of items. So similar discussion. Moilin bahem mishah. There's the isra meila as soon as they become kaddish. However, only kidshu b'kli, only once it's kidshu b'kli, do we say hochshru lifsol b'tfuyayim. Does it become ready to become possible tfuyayim, or b'chosik kippur, or ubelina? Right. So what do you see? You see keteris is on that list, and only once it becomes kidshu b'kli does it get into the problem of these three severe halachas of worrying about being touched by tfuyayim, touched by yechosik kippurim, and having a problem of lina. Kidshu b'kli in, like kidshu b'kli loy. It sounds like only once it was kidshu b'kli that makes it kedushas haguf that has these severe problems. But again, if it wasn't kitchen b'kli, from the second Mishnah we see that this long list of things, keteris included, that if it's not kitchen b'kli, then it doesn't have all these stringencies. There was a syllable there that was wrong. Strictnesses. It doesn't have these problems, right? It doesn't have those problems. So you can't. Don't tell me that keteris as soon as it gets crushed is going to be kedushas haguf. So make up your mind. What is keteris? And we're having an identity crisis with keteris. Is it as soon as it gets crushed? Again, later on, once you actually do the avodah with it, it actually puts in a klisharis. Of course, it becomes kedushas haguf. That's for sure. But when it's just sitting there as Keteris, again, like our discussion, when they have this storehouse of Keteris, what do they do with it at the end of the year? So we were trying to claim that Keteris is low level Kedusha. That's why you could just zap the Kedusha onto something else. It's only Kedusha's Damim. Right. We're going back and forth over here. We have one place saying Keteris, I mean, it's a contradiction, by the way, within and of itself. Because we said, one Mishnah said that Keteris has a problem of Tzol Yom right away. Really, it's a contradiction in and of itself. And then we're saying Keteris in this most recent Mishnah is saying it only has a Tzol Yom problem once it was Kidshu B'Kli. So really, it's a contradiction between the Brisa on line 2 and the one we just saw. I'm realizing now. So what is Keteris? What's Keteris' deal? When it's only been crushed, it hasn't actually been put on the Keteris Avoida process. Right. So what is it? It has to worry about Tzol Yom and such, or it doesn't have to worry about Tzol Yom?
Mm-hmm. You have two different Brises.
But the Gemara's not going to answer that. That's the problem. Let's see what the Gemara says. Amarle, Gemara says, okay, Lina ka'amart. Lina is something is what you're mentioning. That's unique. Shiny Keteris. Keteris is different. Hayel v'tzirasa b'chol hashana kula. Since it keeps its physical tsura shape the whole year, so then Lina doesn't really bother us so much since it doesn't change its appearance. So then, even though really it is Kedushas Aguf, but it's not going to be possible Lina, even though it's Kedushas Aguf. Why? Because Lina is all about, when a carbon and animal gets shechted, then it gets roasted on mizbech, so it changes its tsura. So then that's why there's a psol Lina. However, when it comes to Keteris, it doesn't have that change. Therefore, there is going to be no psol Lina. So again, really Keteris is Kedushas Aguf. And again, that's going to lead us back to our Gemara's original problem. But for now, let's just identify what Keteris is. Keteris really is Kedushas Aguf. And that's why it has a Tzol Yom problem. That's why it has a Tzol Yom problem. It seems in this last Mishnah over here that it's only that Lina is not an issue unless it actually goes into a Klisharis. So we're saying Lina is unique. Lina is a unique halacha, but since Keteris doesn't change its form, that's the word I want. It doesn't change its form, it's not going to bother us. So I'm just pointing out, in this most recent Mishnah, it also seems to tell us that Tzol Yom also wouldn't be an issue until you put it into a Kli. So what we're forced to say is that this Mishnah, when it says only because you put it into a Kli, that has to only be going on Lina.
Right.
So Lina is unique. Normally something, once it's Kedushas Aguf, bam, Lina is going to be a problem right away. Why is Keteris different? Because since Keteris doesn't change its form, then it's not going to be an issue.
So it doesn't even matter if it's in clear or not. It has no shape.
So Rashi said, very good. So Rashi says, but there are bonon. Once it got put in the Kli, we'll make a gzeir of Lina just so you don't get confused with other things. Very good. Really technically Lina.
Right.
That's exactly Rashi's point. Very good. Good. Okay, fine. So now, anyways, the point is, now that we identified that Keteris is Kedushas Aguf, so again, bring it back to our paid programming. The kasha was that are you allowed to just pop kedusha out of something from carbon tamid? We see you're allowed to do that. And we tried to show that Keteris you could do it also. And Mar's answer was, or tried to answer that no, Keteris kedusha is damim. It's low level. We just proved after our whole journey of running through the halachas of Tzol Yom and Lina that no, Keteris kedusha is Aguf also. And so then how come you're allowed to yank the Kedusha out of Keteris? Seems to be a proof from Keteris that you're allowed to yank the Kedusha out. So if you can yank the Kedusha out of Keteris, you should be able to yank the Kedusha out of the carbon tamids, and then Rabbi Yochanan's correct. What's Rabba's whole, what's the elegant screaming about?
We said it was low level, so therefore it's possible.
But we just showed it's not low level. Right. We just showed that, we showed Keteris is Kedusha's Aguf.
Only Gezer the Rabbanan.
No. We showed Keteris is Kedusha's Aguf.
Yeah.
Then how come it doesn't have Lina? Okay, Lina's the unique piece.
Right.
And then you're a piece off to the side of that. So then why is there Lina after once it does go into the Kli? That's the Rabbanan. But the point is that Keteris is Kedusha's Aguf. So we come up with kasha. You're still left with the kasha. What's going on? Where did the Kedusha go to? How does it work? Amarabo. Oh, it's funny. It's Rabbi himself. Rabbi himself answers, Leiv Bezdin Masna Leim. The heart of Bezdin made a condition. When it purchased these things, such as sheep for carbon tamid, spices for Keteris, it made a condition. If we need it, we'll use it. And if not, then we'll use it for its money. So in other words, when an individual goes and is makdish a carbon, okay, that's a carbon. You can't get out of that. Bezdin is a whole different operation. Bezdin, at the beginning, when it says, okay, we have all our money now, we're going to start purchasing things, they made a condition at the beginning. You see this in different places, lay Bezdin, Masna lay, meaning, why do I use a shul for a kiddush? Because I made it tonight when they build it. That type of idea. So here also, when they stock the warehouses for kudshim with animals and ketairos, things like that, even though generally you wouldn't be able just to quick flip the kedusha somewhere else, when it comes to the storehouses of the Beis Hamikdash, they're allowed to because they made a condition at the beginning. That's the idea. So that's the answer. Finished. That's why you're allowed to do it. Only Abaye says, really? Rabbi, you hold that's okay? But you're the one that says, Hikdish zachar ledomov. If you're makdish a zachar, an oila, ledomov, for its money, meaning, if I'm makdish a chair for to be used as money for an oila, so fine. What if I'm makdish the proper animal to be used for the carbon? Again, not that I said that animal shall be a carbon, and that's pasha, that becomes kachim and you're done, right? You can't get out of it. What if instead of just saying I want to make the value of that chair to be used for demei oila, I actually take the right animal. That ayol, that's why you pick zachar. That ayol, which is the proper animal for an ayol, I want the money of that ayol to be used for an ayol. So what happens? Kaddish Kiddush Zuguf. Rabbi himself says that you're stuck now. Had you said I want that animal to be used for a chatas, okay, well that animal can't be used for a chatas. So obviously it's a monetary donation. But now that he actually picked the animal's designated carbon that it could be, so Rabbi holds you're stuck now. So ask
that animal. You can't transfer it.
You can't transfer it. So just ask Sabai. That's kind of what's going on over here. Bezdin saying we're going to buy a bunch of sheep to be used for the carbon tubbins. So how could you say that they have this loophole? If we want to use it for sheep, great. If not, we want to use it for something else. It's like a guy coming along and saying, I want the money of that animal to be used for kudshim. Oh wait, that's actually the right animal? Bam, you're stuck. So why isn't Bezdin stuck also?
Right.
Same thing. In other words, Bezdin's entire purchases are like an individual going, I want the money of that to be used for Beis Hamikdash. But Rabbi himself says, if you happen to pick the right animal, Hikdish Zachar Ladamov, so then you're stuck with Kedusha Zuguf. So why are you allowed to get out of it? Versus like Harsha, it's not a question. Hada Amr Ladmei Oila, Hada Amr Ladmei Nesachim. Yeah, that particular case is very unique because he said Ladmei Oila. Meaning when you pick the right animal and he said, I want to be makdish Ladmei Oila, so then you're right. But if he would have said, let's say for example, Ladmei Nesachim, so then you wouldn't get stuck, right? The sachim, the wine is no shaykhis to the oil. Must be you're going to sell it, use the money, and go buy wine for the sachim, right? So here also, when Bezdin goes, okay, we're going to buy these sheep. They don't buy a flock of sheep and go, okay, we're going to buy these sheep to be used for the carbon tumbins. Because then if they would do that, then they'd be stuck. They're buying them. They're buying them for the general avodah. Rashi says on a base. For some reason, Shevuos, these Rashis keep being kicked to the next number. I don't know why. They had a structural problem, I guess. But if he says that they should be for Nesachim, even though Nesachim also go on the Mizbeach, right? Still, since that's not what this animal could possibly ever become, so then it's fine. So here also, when Bezdin makes the Tanai, then they'll use it for something else. So that's why the Tanai, the loophole works. Right.
They can't allocate it. They can't put it aside to be a specific carbon either. It's the same as a personal. It's like they just bought a bunch of.
Yeah, they buy a flock of sheep.
Right.
And they don't go
allocate it to a specific carbon.
Yeah, we say if we need to use it, it should be for the carbon tummins, and if we don't want to use it, it should be for we say renovating the mizbeach.
But they're not saying this is. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're not assigning it.
I read you how Rashi says it.
That's
Eicha the Masna Bezdin, when Bezdin makes a condition, Shiyu Dmei Meiser Truma. The extra should be for the extra money. Shihil Rikuye Pachem, that should be for the covering of the mizbeach. I mean, they put that in at the beginning. So similar to someone that says, I want that animal to be used for something totally different, they put that condition in that these sheep are not necessarily going to be used for a carbon tumid.
Right.
They might be used for financial to sell them.
Right. It wasn't
and use them to renovate the base of the mizbeach.
Right. Yeah.
So they put that in there. Okay. Did we ever get back to why this is brought here? No, we didn't do it, right? I think this, we'll see. This is going to connect to our sugya at some point. I don't remember. I don't know exactly where. But okay, Eisvi Abaye. Abaye has a kasha. Abaye has a kasha. Par v'seir Yom Kippurim she'avdu. The par and the seir of Yom Kippur. These are the ones that go in front, are done b'fnim. The avdu, and they got lost. And then you brought in replacements. V'chein seir avodah zara. The seir of if Klal Yisrael did avodah zara. She'avdu again also got lost. And then you got replacements. So what happens to the originals? You find them. What happens? Where else is this? Okay. So what happens? So then Kulin Musu to Rebuta. Rebuta says they all get killed. They're useless. They go to the garbage. Rabbi Elazar, Shimon, I even know, not so intense. Yuru actually stavu, let them graze till they get a mum. V'yimachru and sell them v'yifilu the main ladava, and then you use the money to bring a different carbon and a dava. Why? She'ein chatas tzibor mesa. Period. Because the chatas tzibor doesn't get killed. What you do with these ones you lost, you brought replacements, then you found them, and they're chatas tzibor. What do you do with them? Either they get killed, according to the first opinion, or according to the second opinion, they get sold. Well, you wait for them to get a boom. I'm sorry, and then you use the money for something else. So now, what's the kasha? V'amai, why is it so? Leima leiv bezdin masna leim. Why don't we say that bezdin should make a condition? What's the kasha? Why do you have to wait till you get a mum? Again, you're dealing with things purchased by Beis HaMikdash.
Right.
These are carbon tzibors, not individuals. They're purchased by Beis HaMikdash. So why do you have to wait till you get a mum?
Because it's kaddish. That's the whole point. Isn't that what we were just saying before? Is that something that was kaddish? Like you can't just the same reason we can't obey it.
But that's what we're saying. When it's a corporate owned thing, then you can leiv bezdin masna leim.
No, because we didn't specify. We also said we didn't specify that this is for a specific korban. In this case, we're specifying no. This is for these have been allocated to be a specific.
No, but there's a condition. Bezdin is able to get away with it because Bezdin goes, I'm buying this sheep for a tamid, but if I don't need it, I'm going to use it to sell it and use the money to renovate the basement. You're also
right, but that's
you're also. I bought a sayer for a carbon tzibor.
Right.
So the condition should be: if I need it, great. If I don't, I can flip it.
No, but maybe they didn't put that altanai.
No, it's across the board. It's written in the.
But once they pick it and they allocate it to a specific carbon, that doesn't change.
You want to say before you just have a storehouse of sheep,
Right?
whereas here you picked it and chose it. I hear.
Right. I think that's the whole point.
That's not gonna be the worst teretz.
Thank you. This is not the worst.
You want to say here it was chosen for a specific carbon. I mean, there also was chosen. It was chosen to be a tamid at some point in the future. Here it was designated to be the exact. I hear. Not a bad point. It's not a bad point. Yeah, I hear. Yeah. I hear. No.
Yeah.
No. Okay, kasha. I'm not sure. The Morris kasha is. So why don't you say that Bezin made it tonight? The Morris says avudim ka'amar. If you're talking about a case that was lost, shiny avudim. Avudim is different. Very uncommon. Meaning it's not included in if you look at the fine print. It's not included in Bezin tonight. Bezin makes it tonight on things that are common. You're gonna have leftover this. You're gonna have leftover guitars. You're gonna have leftover sheep for the tamids. But to have this ridiculous case, if you lost it, you found it in the whole thing. So it doesn't, in the fine print, it's not included in Bezdin's loophole. But we still left with Brian's point of why don't you say that his chiluk. Okay, I'm gonna go on a whole new journey about Paraduma. So I'm gonna hold it here because I gotta go on. All right, shkoyach.
Before you go, however,
Shkoyach.
I'm not going to be in the basement room tomorrow, unfortunately. But we wanted to just express our akar satov to you for always being available to fill in for Rabbi Loiterman. You're very own.
The second time I've ever done it.
Well, down the road though, we're just getting started here.
Okay.
You got your own Kahal Yereim mug, pens. We really appreciate you filling in.
I gotta come tomorrow night now. I have no choice.
100%. We know how to sell someone.
You definitely do.
Yeah, definitely.